Good morning. Today we are going to continue our lecture on how we create poster presentation. And before that, I want to look at the number of presenter. Okay. So for those of you who haven't sent the assessment sheet for the 8-minute presentation, please turn in the assessment sheet as soon as possible, because the material will be used by us to grading your marks basically on the activities related to the 8 minutes presentation. So please do so before we end the class. Okay. So if I'm looking at the attendance list that we have, from 31 students who are enrolled in this class, I guess there are only 28 who are attending the class actively, and so I guess the schedule, the schedule for our class, we can start the 15-minute final presentation not on Monday, because if we compute the number of students who is actively engaged in the class is only 28, and 28 students probably will be enough for us to present in 5 sessions. So if you look at your screen at the moment, it is the planned schedule that we have up until week 12, and we already in this part, and we're going to continue with that later on. However, for our meeting on Monday, I guess we could use it for another purpose, because based on the lecture materials that we have one more topic, which is basically additional one. So the plan was not to previously the plan was not to convey the method on how we create CV and statement of purpose, abstract of presentation, etc., and so on. But since we only have 28 active participating students, therefore we could cram the number of students presenting on 5 days starting on Thursday next week. And therefore, the session on Monday, we could allocate them to learn about how to create a CV, statement and purpose, and also abstract of your presentation. And then by Thursday, the list of presenters for the final presentation will be given. So before Thursday, I will create something like this one. Okay, let me go to the last semester's preparation. So, okay. So what I'm usually do before we begin the final presentation is that I'm going to upload a flyer or some kind of a poster that is introducing the list of presenters that are going to talk on that particular day. So for example, this one, the list of presenter consists of 6 speakers, and this was in the last meeting, in the last semester, where each session, because normally we have 2 hours session on Monday and Thursday, but this semester I don't have that luxury because I need to teach elementary physics in Jatinangor. So since scientific communication is a 3-credit class, it means that the normal time for the class is 3 hours per week. So instead of 4, okay, well, the Department of Physics gave us 4 hours each week, but I couldn't use it effectively since I need to teach the elementary physics, and therefore we only have 3 hours per week for scientific communication. So in Monday we're going to have 3 or 4 speakers, whereas in Thursday we're going to have 7 speakers to present their topic. So what I'm going to do next week, probably on Wednesday. Okay, so Wednesday, April the 14th. Wednesday, April the 13th. I will publish this flyer that lists the names of the Thursday presenters, and also on Sunday on April the 17th, I will also publish another flyer that lists the name of speakers for Monday session, and then also the same for the following Thursday and Monday. And so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show the names and the title of each presenters, and hopefully if you are willing to write the abstract, because writing an abstract is also part of your final paper, right? Remember that you need also have the requirement to submit the final paper on April the 28th, okay, the last day of our class in this semester. And so abstract is part of that final paper. Okay, so if you're able to write a short abstract before we go to the 15-minute presentation, that will be good, so that every students knew about the well, at least a small detail on the speakers is going to talk about. Okay, so today, while we continue learning about how we create poster presentation, in Monday, we'll change this schedule into another thing, okay, which is basically related to the how we create CV and statement of purpose. Okay, let me change this first. CV state purpose abstract. And this is not part of the assessment. Okay. Okay. Hopefully, everybody who are actively engaged in the class knew about the new schedule, and therefore they could manage the time. Okay, and the picking of the presenter's name is going to be randomly selected, like the one that we have on the 8-minute presentation. So be ready for your presentation. Practice, do a lot of practice so that your presentation flow will be on the correct tempo with the correct pace and the correct sound loudness, and therefore you able to keep the time management for your presentation, not to be longer than 12 minutes, so that we can afford 3 minutes for question and answer. If you have a shorter presentation time, it means that you're going to have a longer Q&A session. So please be aware that we're going to use the time effectively for 15 minutes for each presenters. Okay, do we have questions up until this point? Okay, sorry. This one's, yeah. I'm going to release this flyer on Wednesday, April the 30th. Okay, that lists the names for the Friday sessions speaker. Okay, so this is how to write this. Okay, the material for how to write the CV, statement of purpose, and abstracts already given in the EduNext. Okay, so I'm going to fix the content for week 13 in EduNext because it is still mentioning the course material of last semester. However, the main body of the lecture content will be relatively the same in terms of the content, in terms of content of how to create CV, statement, purpose, and abstract, the videos, the list of videos, etc., and so on. But I'm just going to remove this later on because I don't think that you need to create a CV, okay? Because what usually I do is what I usually do is that in the previous semester, writing a CV is also part of your minor assessment, and then the names of students who are submitting their CV will be the order for the 15 minutes presentations. But I think I'm not going to do that in this semester. I'm just going to randomly select the number of students so that you are prepared. Okay, you knew about that the presentation should be prepared on the final weeks of the semester. Okay, so with this, okay, please, again, I'm telling all of the students here to submit the assessment sheet for the 8 minutes presentation because it is going to be used for your own grading in 8 minutes presentation sessions. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to move on to poster presentation. We already talked about the differences and the advantages of using poster presentation relatively to oral. And in oral, the list of speakers usually limited because they have time allocation. They have time limitation for each speaker, usually about 15 minutes each, and then 15 minutes each. So that's why in this class, in scientific communication class, we also use 15 minutes period because most of oral session in one annual meeting have the same time period for the speaker to talk about their topic and also to answering questions that come from the audience. Well, some annual meeting do have longer time, for example, 20 minutes to 25 minutes. But for a large meeting where the number of participants is relatively big, so for example, in the SEG annual meeting or AGU annual meeting, or even in the Indonesian Indonesian Association of Geophysicists, the time allocation for the speakers is only 15 minutes. So they only have 10 to 12 minutes to talk about their topic, and then the rest of the time will be used for to answering questions. And in one annual meeting, for example, the number of speaker could be in hundreds, okay, where the days and the room that they rent for the meeting itself is limited, and therefore another alternative to show our result of research, or if you want to present the current stage of our knowledge, of our understanding about some experiment or for some formulation, we could use poster presentation. Okay, and however, usually in poster presentation and annual meeting, as I mentioned earlier, is that the time period for that sessions is limited to an hour. Okay, limited to an hour, which is basically correspond to the break time. So if we have, okay, so I'm just showing you the one of the example of conference management. Okay, so if I, okay, so let me use a new slide blank. So for example, if we have a conference like this one, so if we begin our conference on 8 to 8:30, we usually have an opening speech. Okay, and then by 8:30 to from 8:30 to 9. Oh, not from 9. From 8:30 to, for example, so we have opening speech, and then from this one to 09:45, we're going to have first oral session, and then from 9:45 to 10, we're going to have a coffee break, morning coffee break. And then from 10 to 12, we have second oral session. And then from 12 until probably 13, okay, so 1 p.m., we're going to have lunch break. And at this lunch break is what we usually have the poster session. Okay, so here in the oral session, from the first oral session from 8:30 to 9:45, for example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 speakers. And in this 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, so this is, we have 8 speakers. And in here, in poster session, probably there will be a number of presenters, for example, 10 to 20, 10 to 15 presenters. And then after that, we begin our afternoon sessions. So from there to 14:45, this is the third oral session. And then from 15 until 17, Okay, I guess there will be an intermission here from 14:45 until 1500 is going to be the coffee break, the afternoon coffee break. And then by 1500 to 1700 hour, we're going to have the final oral session of the day. Okay, so in this short time frame, okay, the presenter of the poster session will display their poster in one gallery, for example, which display many poster, and they will compete for with another presenter because they need to grab the attention of the attendees to look at their poster. Okay, some annual meeting indeed have their own poster presentation session, which is dedicated for that. But that's not usual. But that is kind of special meeting, and not many association use that time frame in their annual meeting, because what we usually have in an annual meeting, the poster session is only lasts probably just for an hour, and then that is situated in the during lunch break. So while people eating their lunch, usually with bread, etc., and so on. So this is a setting where the conference is held in an international meeting, and it's typically not held in Indonesia. So if we have a typical Indonesian meeting, the poster session will be allocated, for example, for an hour after the lunch break, because during lunch break, especially in Indonesia, people will eat in a dining fashion. Okay, they need plates, and then the food itself is not quick to consume, and then they have a pray time to accommodate them, and so the poster session usually held after the lunch break, so from 13 to 1400 hours. But still, the time frame is limited. Okay, the time frame is limited, but the number of people, that can speak about their topic will be more than one particular oral session. So, for example, in this case, if we have this time frame, there will be about 7 speakers, and this is for 8 speakers. So for each session in oral presentation, maximum we have 8, right? 8 speakers. But for poster session, it could be more than 8. It could be 10, 15, 20, or even 30 people that show their poster on the gallery. We are in a hall, where the lunch is served on that particular meeting. So the competition for attention in poster presentation will be fierce, because they need to make a striking display. Okay, they need to have a striking display so that it will grab the attention of people while they're eating their lunch. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, in Monday, even though the content of the poster presentation is relatively the same with the oral one, but it is not only as a paper that is stuck on the wall. It is not like a newspaper that people display in one particular publisher, because it needs to be because the purpose of working on a poster presentation is for us to tell people that we have this achievement, we have this result in our research, and we need to grab people attentions as quickly as possible, so that when we have that attention comes to us, we could tell us about more details about our work. Okay, so the tips that I've introduced to you on Monday is where there are three here. We need to know what our audience is, and then what do they want to know, and then what will capture their interest. And then the rule of thumb to grab their attention is that most people will decide in less than 5 seconds from 3 meters away if they are going to come closer for a look at your poster, and in less than 40 seconds they will decide whether they're going to stay on your poster, or they will move on to the next poster, or they're going to move on to their next activities. So if you want to know what are the poster presentation atmosphere, so poster presentation session. Okay, this is I grab you an example that I grabbed from Google Image. So here you can see that in this example, that the number of poster displayed on the display, okay, is more than 1,000. Okay, because here, okay, because here the number is basically telling us the number of participant in in poster presentation, and people will come up to the exhibition hall while they're having their lunch, and then they see a topic that might interest them. Because those who are attending the poster presentation in the assembly hall is basically those who want to know about the advancement of the current state of the knowledge. They want to know what are the latest technology that is used in research, or technology used in one particular industry. For example, what are the advancement? What are what are the latest technology that is available in the industry, or what are the improvement made in order to gain economic benefit, etc., and so on. And so they will go to the assembly hall, and then they will look up at the title. If the title itself is sketchy, if the title itself is able to gain their attention, they will approach to the poster, and if the author of the poster is near, then they will talk with them. And from that moment, in less than 5 seconds, they will have a short they will have some kind of a short interaction related to the topic itself. And after the speaker, or after the presenter tell you about some details, the audience will decide whether it is related to the thing that they want to know, or they will move on to the next activities or the next poster. Okay, because probably from this number of poster, there are one who is going to be matched with the thing that he or she is looking for on that occasion. So if you could see here, during a poster session, one speaker could speak about their topic for a whole 1 hour. So there are, again, a difference between oral and poster presentation. In oral presentation, each presenter will have 10 to 20 minutes plus 3 minutes to answering questions. In poster presentation, however, you have a whole hour to describe and also to answer questions that is coming up from the attendees. Okay, and then the display material, display material that you're going to use is a poster. Okay, a piece of paper. It is not going to be moving on from one slide to another, unlike oral presentation. And so the amount of information that you need to put on your poster should be designed well, should be organized well, should be, you need to think before you put one particular topic, one particular details, one particular description to your poster, because obviously the attendees will see your poster and they will look up what is the main message, what is the purpose, or what is the goal of the study itself. If they see that the goal is relevant to their work, or relevant to their field, for example, then they will talk with you for the rest of the poster session time. Okay, so these are the one of the differences between oral and poster presentation. Especially you need to grab the attention of the audience more on that. Okay, so let us continue to this one. Now, an effective poster should also have the following features: prominent title, okay, prominent title, visual interesting figures, and also clean, uncluttered appearance. You must highlight key points so that they are immediately recognizable. So these are the main difference between oral and poster presentation, is that the way that you convey your topic, it needs to be on keyword, because it needs to grab the people who is coming out on the poster presentation itself in the quick fashion. And it must be arranged logically so that the viewer quickly understand the story of your poster. And then it must contain all elements of a good research paper. It still needs to have motivation, or the aims or the goals of your study, the methods used in the study, the result, the discussion, conclusion, and also the acknowledgement. Okay, especially if in an annual meeting where the sponsor of your scholarship, or the sponsor of your research, or the sponsor of your work is attending that meeting, if you're not able to write their names in the acknowledgement, then I think you're going to have a big problem later on, because they will not going to give you more funds, or they will stop your their scholarship, because you're not complimenting them after you have that grant, after you have that scholarship from them. Okay, so make sure that you have proper acknowledgement on your poster presentation, so that whenever a sponsor came up to your poster, they will see that these are the result of your study, and this is where the money is. It is the result of their investment of you. Okay, you need to distill your message. What one idea that you want to what one idea do you want your audience to take away? So for example, in this example, the one idea is that they want to promote this equipment. Okay, they basically create this and they manufacture, they make the instrumentation probably, and then they're going to sell this one. They're going to tell the audience that this equipment is able to measure this, and this, and it has the capability to give you information about this phenomena, that phenomena, and etc. and so on. So here, the equipment become the focus of the poster itself. even though it has a not striking title. So there are several approach. If you're not going to sell an equipment, it is better for you to make a catchy title so that people will grab, so that people will get attention to your title. But if you're going to sell a certain equipment, or you have a new mechanism for certain studies, then it should be the main point of your poster. Okay, so in this example, this equipment becomes the one message that you want to convey to the audience. Your audience will not approach you if it's not clear from a safe distance. So here is the rule of thumb for an audience that could see your poster. 3 meters is the rule of thumb. So so if you look at this example of poster presentation session, or from this one, or from this one, okay, the attendees will roam the assembly hall, okay, and then they will look from a distance first to see whether the title is interesting or not, and then after they see that the titles or the main feature of the poster is interesting enough, then they will approach you. Okay, so let us continue. Okay, how to get started? Choose a poster layout. You could use a portrait or landscape, and then you could make a vertical column like this one. Okay, this is the typical format for a poster presentation. Where, example, you can see here in the Google image, right? Most of the presenters here is using the column image, even though there's some kind of modification on them. And okay, continuing. Whereas another format that you can use is a contrasting field like this one. So, for example, you're going to tell about before and after, or you want to contrasting from one method to another. So you analyze or you process a certain data using method A and method B, and then you compare which one is the best between the two. So you can use the contrasting field, or you can use a centered image with explanation like this one. So here, one common content that these three poster has, obviously, is the acknowledgement on the lower on the last part of their poster, and it also contain the acknowledgement. And also, I think this one also has a acknowledgement session, but it's kind of blurred if you see it from here. And then the abstract itself, it is some where one particular meeting requires you to add an abstract included in your poster, but some of the poster will not contain them because it is not required by the committee of that annual meeting, for example. So inclusion of abstract in your poster, it is not a compulsory for one particular meeting, but at some meeting it is required. So you need to, so whenever you have a poster session in one annual meeting, make sure that you keep in touch with the committee so that you know what are the templates, what are the requirements of the corresponding meeting, of the corresponding poster session meeting. Okay, here are the outline, or here are the one way to design your poster content. You could obviously, and then it is common to have title and author and affiliation on top of your poster, whether it is on the landscape or in portrait orientation. And then here, this is one of the, well, this example here is a just an example of a poster outline, which is pretty conservative. You put the intro or motivation here in the left, and then the background, and then the result, analysis, conclusion, and then the acknowledgement. So here again, putting up your references is not compulsory. Okay, putting your references in the poster is not necessary if you have an original work on the topic itself. If you if in this class, in scientific communication class, putting the original paper is required because you are not working on your original paper, because you have this I'm sorry, I'm moving on to the Google Drive folder that contain the number of papers that you could use, that you need to use for poster presentation. Okay, the topic is the topic is range from landslide to application of physics in music and language. Okay, and therefore, since you are not working on your original work, it means that adding the original paper and or at least need to have a reference from this particular paper. So for example, if you choose this one, if you choose the Earth core as a reservoir of water, for example, then you need to put the title, the author, and also the year of this publication in the bottom of your poster. For example, in the bottom of the acknowledgement text box, for example. Whereas here in the title and author affiliation is basically the title itself, and also your names. Okay, the one who is creating this poster, but you could put the original title and paper as a references below the acknowledgement. Okay, so for a typical poster presentation, you don't need to put references, but for our class purpose, you need to put it as a way that you're not plagiarizing the work itself. Because in this scientific communication assignment is that after you read a certain paper, you want to grasp the information, and then you retell the information in a way of a poster, in the form of a poster. Okay, so every poster should have a headline title and that contain author and affiliation. Okay, the title usually written in 120 pt fonts. So make sure that the size of your poster is using the A1 or A0 paper. Okay, A1 or A0 paper, so that here the size of the title is correspond to the 120 pt fonts, and then it should contain less than 10 words, because if you have longer words, then it will not be catchy, or the attendees or the people who is looking at your poster will not get interested into your poster because you have too long a title. And then the above session should contain your name and also affiliation, and it's written in 80 points fonts. Okay, if it's important, then make it big. Okay, so this is one tip to make a poster outline, is that if it's important, then you should make it big in the poster. Include an abstract only if your poster is going to be unattended. Okay, this is one of the example of a reason why you put an abstract. The first one is that the committee of the annual meeting is required you to do so. And the second one is that if it's okay for you to leave the poster, Okay, you don't need to stand beside the poster all the time. Then you need to put an abstract so that people who is coming out to your poster will read the abstract or the short story of the poster itself. So so you don't need to attend. So you don't need to stand by the poster all the time. Okay, so if you're not standing beside the poster to explain the poster, then you need to add abstract to your poster. Okay, if you're standing there explaining the work, nobody's going to read it anyway, and then use the space for something more compelling and visually interesting. And then if you must include an abstract, keep this very brief, so less than 50 words. Okay, so how viewers read your poster? Most viewers will start at the upper left corner of the poster, so the upper left corner, and then read across. Break up your story into columns, text box, like a newspaper, and then put important points at the top of each column. And this is one typical flow of poster reading. So from top left to the bottom, and then moving on to the center, to the bottom, and then going to the right to the bottom. So the tip of creating this set is to keep lines of text less than 12 inch or less than 30 centimeters long, and then people's eye don't easily track strings on the text longer than that, so even at 30 points of fonts. So, and then if your poster is laid out in a landscape orientation, use columns, not rows, to organize the information. The viewer may not able to find his way back to the left side to look at the lower row of the poster, and he will probably just quietly move on to the next poster. Okay, another tip: if navigation is not immediately obvious, number the elements or use arrow to lead the viewer through the poster. So it's just like guiding children. If you want to make some kind of infographics, you could use arrow also in the poster as a guidance to read the materials contained in the poster. Okay, for example, this one, this poster uses arrow to guide a viewer to a complex story. Because here, if you don't have an arrow, then the material here is already cramped. Too many information put on this poster, so it needs to have direction on how we could absorb the information quickly, efficiently, and better. Okay, the tips. Okay, the tips are don't make the viewer guess the sequence. Okay, that's the tip. Okay, remember that people will be looking at your poster while standing, not sitting. Okay, this is the difference. If you have oral presentation, the attendees will sit on a chair while they're listening to your presentation. While for poster presentation, they will stand as you are. So while you are standing beside your poster, the audience will also stand in front of you or besides you. Okay, so don't put information. So don't put important points or tiny print at the bottom. Okay, the center of the poster should feature the method and results. Okay, so problem statement, motivation, and objective should be listed on. So here the assumption is that we are using the 3-column landscape orientation paper, and so the first row, the first column contains problem statements, motivation, and objectives. The center column is showing the method and result, and then the final column is showing the conclusion and also the acknowledgements. Okay, so here use heading to guide the viewer through the poster. The heading should be descriptive, concise, parallel, logical, and hierarchical. But avoid wimpy, contentless heading for like this one. So this is one typical conservative style poster. It is like a oral presentation. It's just like your final project report, but you could choose to use more catchy phrases instead of just using introduction, method, result, discussion, and conclusion. Even though the content itself is basically the introduction part of your poster, it doesn't mean that you need to put introduction words as the headings. You could use another word, for example, motivation of the work, or the way, and then for methods, the way that we're working on, or the result is what we get, something like that. Okay, here is one. This is one of the. This is one example that you should avoid. Okay, but it is happened during poster presentation. So due to the time limitation or to the lack of funding, people usually will only print their slide presentation as their poster. So, but you should avoid this because this is not a good practice. Okay. So if you if one particular case you need to do this, you practically disobey this 3 meters rule of thumb, because if you only print the slide presentation like this one, it will not grab their attention. It will not grab the people's attention to your poster itself. Here is you just basically telling everybody that I've already done this, and this, but you're not. But the impression is that you don't have that willingness to communicate with them, because you just want to tell everybody that I've already done this, and there is it. I don't want to talk too much. Please attend my oral session later on, etc. and so on. So please avoid this type of poster presentation if possible. Okay, you should invest some money to print a poster, or at least to design a poster, so that the people, so that you can give a good impression that you are engaging in the topic, and then you appreciate the attendees, you appreciate the committee of that annual meeting, etc. and so on. So don't use this, okay? Because in terms of the psychology, people will look at the color first. So if they look a poster like this one, just a printing, just a printed slide of your oral presentation, that it will not grab their attention. Okay, here's a good example of strategic positioning like this one. So for example here, background, and then the experiment, and then the problem, the hands, result, future plans. Okay, this is one example of a good one. And here they basically make some kind of a distinction between bottom and upper content. And then the focus is on the center. Use this visual element of the poster to tell the story. Emphasize the main points, illustrate the apparatus, summarize numerical data to show trends or reveal a relationship, and then use printed handouts to convey complicated information and also to provide additional details. Some authors or some presenters also have printed materials to explain the technical details of their research. For example, if they have money that they can spend to print the additional material, then it is advisable for you to also do that. However, if it's not necessary, then you may put all of the information given in the poster itself. And here is one of the example where there are no graph, there are no figures, there are no chart as a natural science and technology fields have. But this is basically a scope on one publication. So for example here, one particular book that is published in one publisher, for example, is they give some kind of a resume or a opinion about this publication, and it is written all with words. So this is one of the example that they have when they have a poster presentation in social studies or in laws or in language studies, etc. and so on. So there are no one particular figure that or one particular graph or chart that may spark an interest from the attendees. So on that subject, on that field, there are some different ways on how we grab people's attention, especially when we talk about the opinions or talk about the summary of a certain publication, for example. Okay, so it is not advisable for us. Okay, it is not advisable for us in physics or in ITB because we deals more we deals more on the technical aspect and also in terms of so what I'm going to say is that here in physics we don't usually have this. So unless we are working or dealing with the people in social studies, then we should avoid this one because this is only works on that field but not on ours. So if we have on physics department or in ITB for in general, then we usually have this type of presentation instead of this one. But in the social studies or in the language studies or in laws or in economics, etc. and so on, this type of presentation is common. Okay, so it doesn't mean that this is wrong. It is applicable only on that field. Okay, but in physics or in ITB in general, it is not used. Okay, so these are the arrangement of text and graph, for example. And then at least half of your story should be told in pictures. Okay, so this is the difference between poster and oral, is that the story of your presentation is not going to be on keywords and sentences, but on figures and table and graphs. Okay, use figure to illustrate your key points. Okay, that is the here are how we tips on how we manage the figures is that make sure to label all figures with legible fonts and font size. So for example, if you have this thin section or you have this image, make sure you have a correct scale. So if you have this strip that correspond to 100 nanometer, people who look at this will know that the size of this one is comparable to 100 nanometers. Okay, include a brief caption of the figure or explicitly refer to the figure in the text. Make sure your image and figures are sufficiently high resolution to be enlarged. Okay, so it is advisable for you to have knowledge in modifying factor image and also in bitmap image. Make sure you advance the points you're making in the text, and then use darker background for lighter figure picture and lighter background for darker figure or picture. Okay, but don't use pointless graphics. So for example, for a beginner, sometimes you grab a picture and then you show it as to illustrate. So one example that I can give here in the class is that when you talk about the advancement in television, for example, you show a television, but the television is only to show the audience that this is a television, but it doesn't have more purpose on that. So make sure that the figure that you put on the poster and also in the oral presentation, obviously, it's basically the heart of your topic itself. Okay, so don't use unnecessary figure to your poster, especially if you are taking someone else's figure without permission. Then it will be a trouble if the institution or if the people who is working on that institution comes to your poster, and then he or she is recognized that that picture is not from you, but it's come from their company or from their institution, for example. Okay, so be careful on that. Okay, here this graphic show apparatus and the process. You can also use that. Don't show picture of equipment if they are unrelated to an important idea that you want to convey. So if this equipment is the main topic or is the original work of your own, then you may put them as it is. If it's only just to illustrate, etc., and so on, don't use that. Okay, so don't use unnecessary figure. Okay, avoid using graphic taken from the internet. Okay, and then make every graphic mean something. Avoid eye candy. So you just put a figure, certain figure, just to show the advanced technology that available there, but it's not your original work. Okay, for example, here, which graphic are waste of space? If we look at this, so if we see at this poster, some figure is basically unnecessary. Okay, because, so for example, gap crossing decision by red squirrel in fragmented forest, for example, I guess the transaction of individual scroll across gaps, this one is unnecessary for the talk itself, because mostly it talks about something else. Okay, use a software presentation program. You can use PowerPoint, CorelDRAW, or Adobe Illustration. Well, in the past, people use a printing tools done in a certain printing company, but now we can use PowerPoint and many softwares to create our own poster design. And then we need to choose color carefully. It is the same principle with oral presentation. You don't want to make your attendees' eyes hurt because of the wrong color choice. Okay. Okay, so here are the comparison between blue, red, and then bright red, and then green, purple, and blue color in a white background. Okay, so this comparison that you can use to guide your poster design. If color to highlight, separate, or associate information visually, make contrast with them. So for example, like this one, blue and yellow, for example, to contrasting the heading and the content. Or if you want to emphasize one aspect, then you may choose another color. Okay, the conservative method of how we choose color is that choose neutral light color as a background. Okay, and then leave educate white space. Okay, effective poster should look uncluttered. Use white space to isolate and emphasize important details. Leave at least 4 centimeters of white spaces between the columns, and then balance elements on the page. Leave at least 4 centimeter margin on all sides of your poster. No plotter prints to very edge of the paper. So keep in mind that the size of poster that we talk about here is an A0 size paper. Okay, A0 size paper. If you have smaller size, for example, A1, A2, or even A3. Okay, so A3 is basically twice of A4 paper. So if you have A4 paper like this one. Okay, let me turn off the background for a while. So if you have one A4 paper like this one, so A3 should be twice the net, like this one. Okay, So this is an A3 paper, and then twice the size of A3 paper is A2, and then twice the size of A2 is A1, and twice the size of A1 paper is A0. And poster presentation usually done in A0 or A1 paper. So the measurements given here in the slides comes up from the A0 size paper. Okay, moving on. White spaces doesn't have to be white. You could have different colors, at least to cover all the white space on the posters. Okay, use easy to read fonts. Okay, sans serif font usually print well and are easier to read from a distance. And then don't use all caps even in the title. The size of the title, section headings, figure caption, text, etc. and so on is given here. And then present text in lists rather than in paragraph. Okay, so it's basically the same advice that I gave to you, not to use sentences, not to use paragraph, especially for physics related presentation. Okay, be prepared to mount your poster on any surface. Because the display, sometimes it is made of wood, sometimes it is made of plastic, sometimes it is made of metal, probably, or an organic material whatsoever. So your poster hanging kits should include push pin or thumbtacks, and then strike pins or drawing pins, plastic mounting putty, or Velcro strip, scissor, etc. and so on, or a tape. Okay, sometimes you also use tape. Okay, isolation tape to put your poster on the display. And then even though the meeting organizer usually have this type of equipment, but don't rely much to them because they already have their job lists much. Okay, they have many things to do, so make sure that we have our own equipments to use. Okay, have handouts available for interested viewers. So, for example, more detailed information about the equipment, more detailed information about the processing method, about the computational method, etc. and so on. So, in summary, the key feature of a poster: it must attract an audience. You need to have prominent title, attractive figures, and clean open layout. It must quickly orient the reader to the key points, should be logically arranged, should contain all elements of a good research paper. It should contain motivation, procedure, result, conclusion, and acknowledgement, and should have clearly labeled section. Okay, and the orientation, you can choose whether you want to make a landscape or portrait, but the focus of your poster should be on the center, because that's where usually the tension is. Okay, that's all I think for the poster presentation design. I could stop the video here. Okay, I can stop the recording here because I want us to move on to the YouTube video. Okay, cancel. I could make it pause instead. Okay, I guess that's all for today's session. We're going to meet again on Monday, discussing about how to create a CV statement and purpose and abstract. Start our 15 minutes presentation on Thursday next week. So thank you all for attending the class. I'll stop the record. I'll stop the sharing screen, and then stopping the recording.